Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some coordinates are classified for a reason. Tonight, we open a file that was never meant to be seen. A suppressed record from a Cold War-era deep-sea mission, detailing the discovery of something impossible in the one place it could never be. Case File 734 Alpha, the Tartarus Anomaly. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some places were meant to be forgotten, and some discoveries were meant to be buried. Deep in the Pacific Ocean, there exists a void, a dead space on our planet that is not marked on any public map. Sailors call it the Silent Maw. Aviators call it the Glitch. But in the highly classified archives of global naval intelligence, it has only one name: Zone Prohibited. This is not just empty water. It is a deliberate lacuna in our world, a place where compasses spin wildly, where satellite communication mysteriously fails, and where strange magnetic anomalies have been known to pull ships off course into oblivion. For decades, the official explanation has been a combination of unique geological formations and extreme weather patterns. But the truth, as always, is far more unsettling. Our story begins in 1987, at the height of the Cold War. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, a network of hydrophones known as the Sound Surveillance System, or SOSUS, lay in wait. Its purpose was to listen for the silent hum of Soviet nuclear submarines. Station Victor 74, a listening post anchored to the abyssal plain at the very edge of Zone Prohibited, was manned by a handful of analysts in a remote, windowless facility. Their job was one of monotonous vigilance, sifting through the clicks of dolphins and the groans of tectonic plates. Until one day, they heard something else. It was a signal, faint, rhythmic, and utterly artificial. It wasn't the signature of a submarine propeller or the ping of active sonar. It was a pulse, a slow, deliberate beat, repeating with mathematical precision every 117 seconds. The sound was low, a subharmonic vibration that felt less like a noise and more like a presence. Cross-referencing every known acoustic signature, both man-made and natural, yielded nothing. The analysts were stumped. The signal's point of origin was even more disturbing. It was emanating from the Tartarus Trench, the deepest point within Zone Prohibited, a location thought to be utterly devoid of life, let alone technology. The data was immediately flagged, encrypted, and sent up the chain of command. A file was opened, its cover stamped with a single, ominous designation: Anomalous Acoustic Event, Non-Terrestrial Origin. In the shadowed corridors of the Pentagon, a quiet, cold panic began to set in. The signal was not a weapon. It was not a warning. It felt like a countdown, a heartbeat from a place that should be lifeless. Something was awake in the deepest, darkest corner of our world, and it was broadcasting a message from a place where nothing should exist. The discovery at Station Victor 74 did not trigger alarms in public. It triggered hushed, frantic meetings in secure, subterranean rooms. The file on the anomalous signal landed on the desks of men whose names do not appear in any public record: the silent architects of national security. The implications were too vast, too potentially destabilizing for open debate. A Soviet superweapon operating at impossible depths, a geological phenomenon that defied known physics, or the one possibility no one dared to speak aloud: that the signal was a greeting from something not of this world. The decision was swift and unanimous. The source had to be identified, but its existence could never be acknowledged. This was the genesis of Project Tartarus. It was an entity born in shadow, a ghost in the machine of government. Funded through black budgets diverted from defunct programs, its very existence was a violation of protocol, an unsanctioned mandate to confront the unknown. At its head was a figure known only as the Director, a veteran of Cold War espionage, whose face was a mask of cold pragmatism. His directive to the newly formed task force was simple and chilling. "You will take a team," he stated in a declassified but heavily redacted audio recording. "You will find the source of this transmission. You will assess its capabilities and its intent, and you will contain it by any means necessary. For the purposes of this mission, you do not exist. Your records will be scrubbed. Your families will be told you are on extended deployment. If you are lost, no one will come for you. Failure is not an option, because failure means we lose control of the narrative of human history." The team assembled for this suicide mission was a collection of brilliant misfits. Dr. Eris Thorne, a disgraced oceanographer whose theories on abyssal pressures had seen him ostracized from the scientific community. Commander Rostova, a hardened Navy SEAL whose entire service record was now classified above top secret. And Dr. Kenji Tanaka, a cryptolinguist who had suffered a mental breakdown after his work on deciphering unknown ancient languages. They were the best, the brightest, and the most expendable. Their mission briefing consisted of a single audio file of the signal and a map of Zone Prohibited. Their task: to take a vessel that officially didn't exist to a place that shouldn't be there, to investigate a structure that couldn't possibly be real. Project Tartarus was now active. To reach the heart of Zone Prohibited, Project Tartarus needed more than a conventional submarine. It needed a ghost. It needed the USS Triton. Officially, the Triton was a failed prototype, a deep-sea exploration vehicle whose experimental hull had cracked under pressure during trials. The project was publicly declared a catastrophic failure, its schematics shredded, its frame sold for scrap. This was a lie. The Triton was a masterpiece of clandestine engineering. Its double-layered titanium hull, capable of withstanding pressures far beyond any vessel ever built. It was mothballed in a secret submarine pen, waiting for a mission deemed too dangerous, too impossible for the official Navy. This was that mission. Under the cover of a Category 4 typhoon, the Triton slipped its moorings and disappeared into the churning gray waters of the Pacific. Its crew was a skeleton force of 25 souls, each handpicked by Commander Rostova, each knowing this was a one-way ticket. We can piece together their journey from the ship's final, recovered log. Captain's log, Entry 1. We are underway. The storm provides perfect cover. All systems nominal. The crew is tense. They know where we are going. The descent began. The first 1,000 meters were routine. Sunlight vanished, replaced by an inky blue. Then, they entered the twilight zone, a world of alien bioluminescence. But as they passed 4,000 meters, the abyss proper, things began to change. Captain's log, Entry 7. Passing 6,000 meters, the pressure on the hull is immense. The ship groans like a dying beast. The signal is clearer now, a constant, low thrum we can feel in our teeth. The crew is on edge. Dr. Thorne is ecstatic, checking his instruments like a madman. As they plunged deeper into the Tartarus Trench, the laws of physics seemed to warp. The submarine's magnetometers spun wildly. Sonar returns became distorted, showing phantom objects that would appear and vanish in an instant. The water outside, once teeming with strange deep-sea life, was now sterile. Nothing lived here. It was a dead zone within a dead zone. The final log entries become more frantic. Captain's log, entry 12. Depth, 9,500 meters. The signal is overwhelming. It's not just a sound anymore, it's a presence. It feels geological, ancient. The crew hasn't slept in 48 hours. Every creak of the hull sounds like a final scream. We are approaching the source. We are going to see what is making the sound. May God have mercy on our souls. The USS Triton was now a single point of light in an eternity of crushing darkness, drawn irresistibly towards the siren song of the structure, found where nothing should exist. At 10,984 meters below the surface, the USS Triton settled onto the silty floor of the Tartarus Trench. The pressure outside was over 1,000 times that at sea level, a force that should have turned the submarine into a crumpled can. But the Triton held. The control room was a tomb of silent tension. The only sound, the hum of the life support and the rhythmic, overwhelming pulse of the signal that had drawn them to the bottom of the world. It was coming from less than 200 meters ahead. "All stop," Commander Rostova's voice was steady, betraying none of the fear that gripped the crew. "Bring external lamps to full intensity. Take us forward. Slow." The submarine crept forward, its powerful floodlights cutting two brilliant white cones through the absolute black. The sonar operator stared at his screen, his face pale. "Commander, I have a contact. It's solid. The angles are wrong. They're perfect." The beams swept across a barren landscape of abyssal clay, and then they hit something. Something that didn't belong. The light did not reflect. It simply stopped, absorbed into a surface of perfect, featureless black. As the Triton drifted closer, the object's full scale came into view, and a collective gasp filled the control room. It was a structure, a monolith, a colossal, perfectly vertical slab of what looked like obsidian, soaring upwards into the darkness beyond the reach of their lights. It had no seams, no markings, no signs of erosion or marine growth, despite the eons it must have sat there. It was a geometric impossibility, a silent, defiant monument of intelligent design in a place where intelligence had no right to be. Dr. Thorne, the oceanographer, whispered into his recorder, his voice trembling with a mix of terror and awe. "It's not made of any known element. It's absorbing energy. The light, the sonar, everything. It's like a hole in reality." As the entire crew stared, transfixed, at the impossible sight on their main view screen, the unthinkable happened. The signal, the constant rhythmic pulse they had followed across the ocean and into the abyss, stopped. The sudden absolute silence was more terrifying than the noise had ever been. A moment later, a deep, resonant hum began to emanate from the monolith itself, a vibration that shuddered through the Triton's hull and rattled the teeth of every person aboard. The final transmission from the USS Triton, recovered months later by a remote listening post, was garbled, filled with static and screams. But just before the recording cut out, Commander Rostova's voice broke through, clear for one horrifying second. "It's not a structure. It's opening." Communication with the USS Triton ceased permanently. Project Tartarus had its first visual confirmation. The structure found where nothing should exist was not just an object. It was a doorway, When the submersible's manipulator arm finally broke a fragment from the structure's surface, the primary objective was achieved. A physical sample. Something tangible to bring back from the abyss, to analyze under the cold, sterile lights of a laboratory, far from the crushing dark. But what they brought back was not merely a piece of rock or metal, it was a piece of impossibility. Archive document 734 Delta, a materials science report from the clandestine Aegis Institute, is heavily redacted. Entire pages are blacked out. But the fragments that remain tell a story that defies physics. The sample, designated Specimen Alpha, was described as a crystalline solid, with a surface that absorbed nearly 100% of incident light, giving it a perfect, featureless blackness that seemed to drink the very photons from the air. It was colder to the touch than its ambient environment, a direct violation of the second law of thermodynamics. Under an electron microscope, its atomic structure was not a repeating lattice, as seen in all known crystalline matter. Instead, the report's author used the term non-Euclidean matrix. The atoms were arranged in patterns that seemed to fold in on themselves, occupying spatial dimensions that, according to the unredacted notes, should not be accessible. Attempts to analyze its composition were a nightmare. Mass spectrometry returned nonsensical data, a chaotic jumble of elemental signatures that flickered in and out of existence. The material seemed to be in a constant state of quantum flux, its very nature unstable yet paradoxically indestructible. They subjected Specimen Alpha to every test imaginable. Diamond-tipped drills shattered against its surface. Industrial lasers capable of cutting through battleship armor were absorbed without leaving a mark, the energy vanishing completely. It was subjected to temperatures approaching absolute zero and then to the heat of a plasma torch. Its surface temperature did not change. It was, for all intents and purposes, a piece of absolute permanence. But its most terrifying property was not its physical resilience. It was its influence. Technicians working in the containment lab reported mild headaches, then whispers at the edge of hearing. Security camera footage, logged under Incident Report 2B Omega, shows a senior metallurgist, Dr. Eris Thorne, standing motionless before the containment chamber for over an hour, his face blank. He later claimed the specimen was showing him things, geometric patterns that made his teeth ache, a sense of falling through infinite cold space. The final entry in the accessible portion of the report is a single, chilling sentence from the lab director before the entire project was moved to a black site facility. The sample does not exist within our reality. It is an intrusion. The structure was not built from something. It was something else, wearing the shape of a structure, an anchor point for a physics that does not belong to our universe, brought back to our world by a crew who had no idea they were carrying a seed of cosmic horror. Every deep-sea mission keeps a meticulous record. It is a lifeline, a testament, a black box for the abyss. The personal log of Commander Rostova, recovered from the wreck of the submersible Hades, was water-damaged and stained, but its words were a chilling chronicle of a journey from discovery to damnation. Her early entries are what you would expect from a seasoned explorer, precise, professional, filled with the thrill of the unknown. Day 4. Sonar confirms the anomaly. A signature unlike anything on record. It's massive, angular, The geology team is baffled. It defies all natural formation theory. Excitement on board is palpable. But as they drew closer, a new tone began to creep into her writing, a subtle thread of unease. Day 7, first visual contact. My God, it's not a rock formation. It's constructed. The lines are too clean, the angles too perfect. It looks like a cathedral built by giants who hate the sun. There is no bioluminescence near it. The perpetual night of the trench seems darker here, as if the structure itself consumes the light. Rostova's log becomes the only reliable narrator in a story of collapsing sanity. She documents the initial awe of her crew, the scientists and engineers who had dedicated their lives to this moment. But the awe quickly curdles. Day 9. Dr. Chen spent 3 hours staring at the forward viewport, sketching the structure's patterns. He claims they are not static. He says they shift when you're not looking directly at them. His drawings are disturbing, spirals and angles that hurt the eyes. He's been confined to quarters after an altercation with the chief engineer. Rostova's entries grow more personal, more frantic. The crisp military prose dissolves into something raw and terrified. She writes of a sound, a hum that isn't a hum, a vibration felt in the bones, in the teeth. Day 12. The noise. It's not on any audio sensor, but we all hear it. It's a feeling, a pressure behind the eyes. It makes you feel small. It makes you feel known. I find myself thinking of things from my childhood, things I had long forgotten, regrets, fears. The hum seems to find them, to pull them to the surface. The final entries are barely legible, the ink smudged by what could be seawater or tears. Day 15. It knows we are here. It's watching us through the water, through the hull, through our own eyes. Ivanov tried to open the outer hatch, said he wanted to go home. We had to sedate him. He was screaming about the angles being wrong. All the angles are wrong. I see it now too. The walls of this submersible are not parallel. Nothing is right. It is not a structure. It is a door. And we have knocked. The last coherent sentence in the logbook of Commander Eva Rostova is not a scientific observation or a distress call. It is a single, desperate plea. Don't let them bring any of it back. Sound in the deep ocean is a language. Whales sing across continents. Submarines hunt by the whisper of a propeller. But the signal emanating from the structure was not a language our science could comprehend. It was first detected not by the hydrophones, but by the submersible's atomic clock, which began to drift, losing milliseconds in a way that was quantumly impossible. The phenomenon was logged as the Mariana Trench resonance, or, in more classified circles, the Siren's hum. It was an ultra-low frequency signal, below the threshold of human hearing, yet every member of the Hades crew reported hearing it. In her log, Commander Rostova described it as a bass note played on a string the size of a planet. Declassified analysis from DARPA acousticians, found in Archive File 9 Kilo Echo, suggests the signal was not a pressure wave moving through water. It was something far more insidious. They theorized it was a direct resonant frequency of human consciousness. Dr. Ilara Vance, a theoretical neuroscientist, whose work was later suppressed, proposed that the signal bypassed the auditory system entirely. It didn't vibrate the eardrum. It vibrated the very microtubules within the brain's neurons. It was a signal that spoke directly to the primal reptilian core of the mind, the seat of fear, paranoia, and existential dread. Attempts to record the resonance failed catastrophically. The data was always corrupted, manifesting on screens as a cascade of glitched, fractal patterns before the recording equipment shorted out. It was as if the signal itself was a form of information that actively resisted observation. One audio engineer on the surface support vessel suffered a complete psychotic break while trying to isolate the frequency, claiming the static was forming words in a language that had too many consonants. But the resonance did more than just affect the mind. It warped the immediate environment. The submersible's internal sensors logged micro-fluctuations in gravity around the hull. Video feeds from the external cameras would momentarily distort, showing the structure's angles bending and twisting into impossible configurations. The resonance was not just a byproduct of the structure's existence. It was an active projection, a defense mechanism, a broadcast. What was it broadcasting? Dr. Vance's final unpublished paper offered a terrifying hypothesis. It wasn't information in the way we understand it. It was a logic virus, a set of axioms and geometric proofs that, once perceived, began to systematically dismantle the brain's ability to process Euclidean space and linear time. The crew of the Hades didn't just go mad. Their perception of reality was being overwritten by a new, alien physics. The hum was the sound of their universe unraveling. At 11,000 meters below sea level, the pressure is over 1,000 times that of the surface. It is an environment fundamentally hostile to human life. But the true pressure on the crew of the Hades was not external. It was a psychological force, an invisible weight that systematically crushed their minds. The official report attributes the mission's failure to compounded deep-sea psychosis. But the fragments of evidence, Rostova's log, garbled comms transcripts, and post-mortem psychiatric evaluations of the lone catatonic survivor paint a picture of something far more sinister. The deterioration began with shared sensory hallucinations. Multiple crew members reported smelling ozone or burnt sugar, tastes and smells impossible within the sealed environment of a submersible. They saw fleeting movements in their peripheral vision, shadows that seemed to detach from the corners of the cramped cockpit and flow like liquid. Then came the paranoia. The mission was composed of a tight-knit veteran crew who had trusted each other with their lives for years. Within 72 hours of encountering the structure, that trust evaporated. The chief engineer accused the lead geologist of sabotaging the life support system. The mission biologist refused to eat, convinced his food was poisoned. Rostova's log mentions having to break up a physical fight over the precise angle of a shadow cast by a console switch. They were turning on each other, driven by an irrational terror that their crewmates were no longer who they seemed. The core of their shared delusion, however, centered on the structure itself. They became convinced it was communicating, not with words but with ideas, with feelings. They believed it was lonely or angry or hungry. The lone survivor, Operations Officer Kenji Tanaka, was found in a near vegetative state. Under deep hypnosis, he spoke of the architecture of fear. He claimed the structure showed them things, not images, but pure, conceptual knowledge. He described understanding the wrongness of a circle, the terror in the color blue, the pain of a parallel line. It was a direct injection of alien logic, a mimetic pathogen that their minds could not process without breaking. The final transmission from the Hades logged as Event 0, is a testament to their final state. It is not a call for help. It is a cacophony of screaming, weeping, and manic laughter, punctuated by the rhythmic metallic sound of something heavy striking the inside of the hull. Over it all, Commander Rostova's voice can be heard, not in panic, but in a state of serene, terrifying clarity, repeating a single phrase over and over. We have to let it in. We have to open the door. The psychological breakdown was not a symptom of their discovery. It was the purpose of it. They were not observers. They were the first casualties of a cognitive war they never knew had begun. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Welcome back to the Obsidian Archive. We return to the abyssal plane, to the coordinates that officially do not exist, and to the deep-sea submersible Triton as it made its final approach. The date was October 17, 2003. The time, 04:13 Zulu. On board, Dr. Aris Thorne and his two-person crew were about to confirm what the long-range sonar had only hinted at: a colossal, geometric anomaly rising from the seafloor. A structure where eons of geological data insisted there should be only silt and pressure. The mission logs, which we acquired through a trusted source, paint a picture of calm, scientific anticipation. The multi-beam sonar was active, painting a high-resolution map of the object's exterior. Spectrometers were analyzing the water composition. High-definition cameras were piercing the gloom, their lights barely scratching the surface of the immense darkness ahead. Then, at 04:17 Zulu, everything stopped. Not a gradual failure, not a system-by-system shutdown, but an instantaneous, absolute cessation. Every single channel of data connecting the Triton to its surface support vessel, the Odyssey, went dead. The live video feed cut to static. The telemetry stream vanished. The audio link, which carried the crew's voices, was replaced by a profound and unnerving silence. On the bridge of the Odyssey, a state of controlled panic erupted. For 58 minutes, the Triton was a ghost. It wasn't just that they couldn't communicate. It was as if the submersible had been surgically removed from reality. All attempts to hail it failed. Emergency protocols were initiated, but the submersible's own automated distress beacon remained silent. The crew of the Odyssey could only stare at their monitors, which showed a gaping void where a stream of life-sustaining data had been just moments before. What could cause such a total, catastrophic failure? A hull breach would have triggered an implosion, detected by hydrophones for miles. A complete power loss would have activated backup batteries and the emergency beacon. This was something else. It was a digital and electronic blackout so perfect, so complete, that it defied conventional explanation. It was as if a switch had been thrown by an unseen hand. Then, at 05:15 Zulu, as suddenly as it had vanished, the Triton returned. The screens on the Odyssey flickered back to life, data streams repopulating with nominal readings. The audio link crackled, and the first words heard from Dr. Thorne were not of emergency, but of quiet, unnerving confusion. The crew reported no memory of the preceding hour. To them, no time had passed at all. The submersible's internal chronometers were off by exactly 58 minutes. The black box data recorder, designed to withstand the most catastrophic events, was wiped clean for that specific time block. 58 minutes. An eternity in the crushing dark of the abyss. A period of absolute silence that would become the dark heart of this entire mystery. In the wake of the Triton incident, the institution funding the expedition, the secretive Advanced Maritime Institute, or AMI, moved quickly to control the narrative. The story they presented to the public, and even to their own lower-level staff, was tidy, technical, and deliberately mundane. 2 weeks after the Triton was recovered, AMI issued a single 2-page press release. The document is a masterclass in obfuscation. It describes the target of the expedition not as a structure, but as an anomalous geological formation, or AGF. It attributes the 58-minute communications blackout to a localized, high-intensity geomagnetic event emanating from the AGF. The language is dense with jargon, speaking of unprecedented metalliferous deposits and piezoelectric properties under extreme pressure, creating a field that temporarily disrupted the submersible's electronic systems. To the casual observer or the hurried journalist, it sounded plausible. But to experts in geophysics and deep-sea engineering, the explanation was, to put it mildly, absurd. We consulted with 3 independent physicists, all of whom reviewed the official statement. They were unanimous. For a natural rock formation to generate an electromagnetic field, powerful and precise enough to simultaneously neutralize every single insulated communication and data system on the Triton, without frying its circuits or harming the crew, it would require an energy source unlike anything known to science. It would have to be a field that didn't just jam signals, but actively erased them. The official report included a heavily pixelated sonar image, labeling the object a unique seamount. But even in the low-resolution image, the clean lines and unnatural symmetry are visible. It looks less like a mountain and more like a buried artifact of impossible scale. Leaked internal emails from AMI, which we have verified, show a fierce internal debate. Junior geologists questioned the AGF designation, pointing out that none of the water or sediment samples brought back by the Triton contained the exotic minerals required for such a theory to work. Their concerns were systematically dismissed by senior management. A memo from Director Silas Hayes, dated just 3 days after the incident, is particularly telling. It reads, in part, "The AGF narrative is final. All project members will adhere to this classification in any and all communications. Speculation to the contrary is counterproductive and will be addressed accordingly." This wasn't a scientific conclusion. It was a decree. The official explanation was not designed to enlighten, but to obscure. It was a thick blanket of geological jargon, thrown over a terrifying truth. The purpose was to make the world look away, to categorize the unknown as the uninteresting, and to bury the most significant discovery in human history under the bland heading of anomalous geological formation. Years after the Triton incident, a Freedom of Information Act request pried a heavily redacted version of the mission's audio logs from AMI's clenched fist. What was released was meant to support the official narrative, but instead, it provides a chilling portrait of what was deliberately hidden. The transcript spans several hours, but our focus is on the moments immediately preceding and following the 58-minute gap. Let's analyze the final seconds of communication before the blackout. At 04:1650 Zulu, co-pilot Eva Rostova's voice is calm, professional. She says, "Confirming visual range. The surface. It's not reflecting our lights. It's absorbing them. Spectrometers going haywire." Dr. Thorne responds, his voice tight with excitement. "Incredible. The geometry is perfect. It's..." And that's where the audio cuts. Not a crackle of static, Not a fading signal, a clean, surgical slice. The next entry in the log is 58 minutes later. The transcript simply notes, "The very first words spoken are from Dr. Thorne, but his tone has completely changed. The scientific wonder is gone, replaced by a strained, hushed urgency. He says, 'Get us up. Now. Emergency ascent.' The mission controller from the Odyssey asks for a situation report. Thorne's reply is clipped, evasive. 'We have the data we need. Mission objective is complete. We are returning to the surface.' But what is most telling is not what is said, but the sounds in the background. In the seconds after communication is restored, if you isolate and amplify the audio, you can hear something else. Beneath Thorne's words, you can hear the faint, rhythmic sound of weeping. Someone in the three-person crew is crying. Furthermore, the official transcript omits the raw audio file's metadata. Our analysts discovered fragmented data packets embedded in the file's header, remnants that the sensors failed to properly scrub. These fragments contain timestamps that don't align with the official log. They suggest the audio was not just cut, but respliced. Segments were moved around, and other portions were completely deleted. The sanitized transcript is a work of fiction, crafted to create a seamless, non-threatening account of a routine equipment malfunction. It erases the crew's initial shock and awe, it erases their fear, and most importantly, it erases whatever they actually said and experienced during those 58 minutes in the dark. The silence in the transcript is louder than any words. It's a carefully constructed void, a black hole in the official record designed to conceal an impossible encounter. They didn't just lose time. Their very experience was stolen and rewritten. For years, the official story held, reinforced by non-disclosure agreements and the impenetrable walls of the Advanced Maritime Institute. But secrets of this magnitude have a weight of their own. Eventually, they crack their container. 2 years ago, we were contacted by an individual claiming to have been a senior data analyst aboard the Odyssey during the Triton mission. For their protection, we will refer to them only by the codename they chose, Karen. Their voice has been distorted, their identity protected by multiple layers of encryption. What Karen revealed dismantles the official narrative entirely. The geological formation story was a lie from hour one, Karen's distorted voice explains. We all knew it. The 58-minute silence, it wasn't a silence. It wasn't an absence of data. It was the opposite. It was a flood. Karen claims that as the Triton approached the structure, its primary sensors were overwhelmed. The blackout wasn't caused by an external field jamming the signal, but by the submersible's own systems attempting to process an incomprehensible amount of information. The black box has a buffer, Karen says. A short-term cache that holds data before it's transmitted. In the moments before the main link severed, that buffer filled with something else. It wasn't sonar data, it wasn't video. It was a signal. A complex, layered, mathematical signal emanating from the structure itself. It piggybacked our own sensor beams, using them as a carrier wave to talk back. According to Karen, the signal was so dense with information that it overloaded the submersible's primary computer core, forcing an automatic system-wide reboot. This is what caused the 58-minute gap. It was the time it took for the Triton's systems to purge the alien data and restart. We recovered fragments from the buffer, Karen continues, just a few seconds worth. It looked like a mix of linguistic patterns, star charts, and biological schematics that made no sense. It wasn't for us. We were just eavesdropping. The crew in the sub, they got the full blast. When they came back online, they were different. Quiet, shaken. They said they couldn't remember anything, but their medical readouts told another story. Elevated heart rates, stress hormones off the charts, REM activity detected during waking consciousness. They didn't forget. Their minds just couldn't process what they had experienced. Karen's testimony reframes the entire event. The structure was not a passive object to be studied. It was aware. It was active. The 58-minute silence wasn't a malfunction. It was a response. It was the moment something that had slumbered in the abyss for untold millennia finally opened its eyes and spoke. And the sanitized transcripts, the geological formation, all of it was a desperate attempt to hide one terrifying fact. We are not alone, and we had just knocked on the wrong door. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some things are not dead, they are simply waiting to be remembered. The initial data streams that trickled back from the abyssal plains of the Aerodanus void were, for a brief, exhilarating period, hailed as the single greatest discovery in human history. The deep space probe, designated Hesperus 7, was not designed to search for life. Its primary mission was cosmological, mapping gravitational anomalies and background radiation at the very edge of known space. But its secondary sensors, a suite of highly sensitive spectrometers and organic compound detectors, began to scream. They painted a picture that was scientifically impossible, yet undeniably present. Complex hydrocarbons, amino acids, and methane plumes with an isotopic ratio that screamed biological origin. These weren't just the building blocks of life, they were the chemical echoes of its processes, the exhaust fumes of a vast, functioning ecosystem. The scientific community was electrified. The data was verified by multiple independent agencies. The conclusion was inescapable. Hesperus 7 had found life. The only problem was, it hadn't. Every subsequent targeted scan designed to find the source of these biosignatures came back with a chilling, absolute, null result. High-resolution telescopic arrays, ground-penetrating radar, microscopic imaging, all of them returned the same sterile verdict. The environment around the colossal, silent structure was as dead as the vacuum of space itself. Not a single microbe, not a single extremophile, nothing. It was a ghost in the machine, a biological paradox on a planetary scale. How could the chemical byproducts of life exist in such abundance without the life that created them? It was like finding a city full of warm ovens and the smell of fresh bread, but with no bakers, no people, no flour, no evidence that anyone had ever been there at all. The world's leading astrobiologists were stumped, their theories clashing in classified forums. Dr. Aris Thorne proposed the echo hypothesis, suggesting a cataclysm had wiped out a thriving biosphere in the geologically recent past, leaving behind a lingering chemical residue that would take millennia to dissipate. The structure, in his view, was a tombstone, but Dr. Lena Petrova countered with a far more disturbing theory. She argued that the chemical signatures were too stable, too fresh, to be ancient echoes. She proposed the existence of a non-biological process, something inherent to the structure itself, that perfectly mimicked the chemistry of life. A form of abiogenesis so alien it defied classification. In her model, the structure wasn't a tombstone, it was a factory, producing the illusion of life for a purpose we couldn't begin to comprehend. The debate raged, but a third, more terrifying possibility began to emerge from the data analysts working in shielded, subterranean labs. The sensor logs showed that every time a probe attempted a direct invasive scan, attempting to drill, sample, or even closely image a specific section of the structure, the biosignatures in that immediate vicinity would momentarily vanish, only to reappear once the probe moved on. It wasn't just that life was absent. It was as if the very act of looking for it caused its chemical traces to hide. The signatures were not an echo or a mimic. They were a lure, or worse, a defensive mirage. The paradox had deepened into something far more sinister. We were not observing a dead ecosystem. We were interacting with an intelligent, reactive system that did not want to be found. With the scientific data yielding only paradoxes, humanity turned to its oldest tool for explaining the impossible: mythology, speculation, and conspiracy. The question of what the structure was doing became secondary to the far more pressing question of who or what had built it in a place where nothing should exist. The theories that emerged from the shadows of intelligence agencies and fringe historical societies were as vast and terrifying as the void in which the structure sat. The first, and perhaps most romanticized, was the pre-Diluvian theory. Proponents of this idea, often disgraced archaeologists and historians operating outside the mainstream, pointed to dozens of flood myths from cultures across the globe. They spoke of a highly advanced, global civilization, Atlantis, Lemuria, Rama, that possessed technology far beyond our own. They argued that this civilization foresaw a global cataclysm, and as their final act, constructed this repository, this ark of knowledge and power, in the one place they believed would be safe from any terrestrial disaster. They pointed to the structure's geometry, which, when analyzed, seemed to contain mathematical constants and astronomical alignments known to ancient Sumerian and Egyptian priests. It was, they claimed, the last testament of a lost branch of humanity, a message from a world before our own. Then came the non-terrestrial hypothesis, the theory that commanded the most attention within the military-industrial complex. This was the alien explanation. The structure's material composition, an impossible crystalline metal that seemed to absorb and nullify all active sensor scans, was not of this Earth. Its scale was beyond any conceivable human engineering project. This theory posited that the structure was a relic, a silent monument left by a galactic civilization that had passed through our solar system eons ago. Was it a beacon? A weapon? A library? Or simply a piece of cosmic debris, a discarded tool from a being to whom we are as insignificant as insects? Blurry, enhanced images of the structure's surface revealed patterns that were not quite writing, but were unnervingly similar to fractal patterns found in complex biological systems, suggesting an architect for whom mathematics and life were one and the same. A darker, more paranoid theory festered within the halls of counterintelligence, the breakaway civilization. This theory rejected ancient or alien origins, suggesting instead that the structure was man-made, but not by the humanity we know. It was the ultimate black project, the result of a secret technological path that diverged from the public domain sometime after World War II, fueled by recovered exotic technologies and brilliant minds siphoned from society. This clandestine group, a breakaway civilization, had advanced in secret for decades, achieving interstellar travel, while the rest of the world was still launching crude rockets. The structure was their main base, their fortress of solitude, built in a place so remote that they could observe and perhaps control the destiny of their mother planet without ever being detected. Finally, there was the fringe theory, the one whispered only in the most secure facilities, the one that made physicists profoundly uncomfortable, the interdimensional origin theory. This posited that the structure was not from our universe at all. It was an intrusion, a bleed-through from an adjacent reality, with different physical laws. This would explain its impossible materials, its defiance of thermodynamics, and its paradoxical biosignatures. It wasn't built in the void. It was the void, a piece of another existence impressed upon our own. It was a cancer on the fabric of space-time, and its creators were beings we could no more comprehend than a two-dimensional drawing could comprehend a sculptor. Each theory was a rabbit hole, and at the bottom of each was the same silent, monolithic object, refusing to give up its secrets. The inconclusive data and the rampant, untestable theories created a pressure cooker environment within the multinational consortium studying the structure. The decision was made to force the issue. Passive observation had failed. It was time for an active, overwhelming approach. This was the genesis of Mission Argus, the most sophisticated and expensive deep space exploration effort ever conceived. The plan was not to send a single cautious probe, but a coordinated swarm of 72 autonomous drones. These were not the simple rovers of previous decades. Each Argus drone was a marvel of engineering, equipped with quantum-entangled communicators for instantaneous, unjammable contact, diamond-boron alloy hulls capable of withstanding extreme temperatures and pressures, and a suite of phase-shifting sensors designed to analyze matter at a subatomic level. Coordinated by a central AI, the swarm was designed to descend upon the structure simultaneously, mapping every crevice, analyzing every molecule, and, if necessary, using focused plasma cutters to obtain a physical sample. They were considered invincible, the pinnacle of human exploratory technology. The mission unfolded with textbook precision. The launch was flawless. The long journey through the void was uneventful. In the secure underground command center, a facility buried deep beneath the Atacama Desert, a palpable sense of anticipation filled the air. The world's top scientists, military leaders, and intelligence analysts watched the main view screen, a mosaic of 72 perfect, high-definition feeds from the approaching swarm. The first images were breathtaking. The drone's proximity revealed details previous scans had only hinted at. A surface that was not smooth but covered in microscopic, shifting glyphs. A color that was not black, but an absence of light itself. And a scale that dwarfed the drones into specks of dust. The AI controller, its synthesized voice calm and steady, reported all systems nominal as the swarm began its final convergence pattern. The target was a vast, circular depression near the structure's equator, identified by passive sensors as a potential energy source or entryway. The drones adjusted their vectors, their sensor arrays glowing as they prepared for the most detailed scan in history. And then, it happened. At precisely 04:17:03 GMT, as the lead drone crossed the threshold of the circular depression, every single one of the 72 video feeds vanished. Not a flicker, not a burst of static, not a staggered failure. One moment, there were 72 perfect images. The next, 72 black squares. The command center was plunged into a stunned silence. broken only by the AI's voice, suddenly confused. Signal lost. All channels. Signal lost. All channels. Attempting to re-establish quantum link. Negative. Attempting. Negative. Panic erupted. There were no distress signals. No telemetry spikes indicating an explosion or system failure. No debris detected on long-range sensors. The entire swarm, 72 of the most advanced machines ever built, had ceased to exist in the same microsecond. Frantic technicians replayed the final moments of data, slowing it down to the nanosecond. On the feed from Drone Alpha 7, for a single, unmeasurable instant before the blackout, the sensors registered an impossible reading. A gravity spike so massive and so localized, it should have been a black hole. But there was nothing there. The official report, classified for 100 years, would state that the swarm was lost due to an unforeseen cascading software failure triggered by a unique electromagnetic field. But in the hushed conversations and encrypted memos that followed, the truth was far more terrifying. The structure had not been passive. It had waited. It had observed our observers. And when they got too close, it hadn't destroyed them. It had taken them. The loss of the Argus swarm was not a scientific setback. It was an existential shock. In one silent, inexplicable moment, the greatest technological achievement of a global consortium had been effortlessly erased. The incident shattered the illusion of control and replaced it with a cold, primal fear. The structure was not a passive relic to be studied, but an active, incomprehensible power. The implications were so profound that they transcended national rivalries and geopolitical maneuvering. Within weeks of the vanishing, a clandestine summit was convened. There were no press releases, no public announcements. The leaders of the 5 major world powers, along with their top intelligence chiefs and scientific advisors, met in a decommissioned submarine base carved into the side of a Norwegian fjord. The location, designated Site Omega, was chosen for its isolation and its ability to withstand a direct nuclear strike. The mood was not one of negotiation, but of shared terror. The debate, according to a leaked transcript from a now disavowed intelligence officer, was stark. One faction, led by military hardliners, argued for a preemptive strike. They proposed using experimental kinetic bombardment weapons to try and destroy the structure from a safe distance. This idea was quickly dismissed. If the structure could neutralize 72 advanced drones without effort, what would it do if it felt truly threatened? The risk of provoking a response that could extinguish life on Earth was deemed too high. The prevailing argument, championed by the scientific and diplomatic corps, was for a policy of absolute containment through absolute silence. They argued that the structure's behavior, the deceptive biosignatures, the reaction to the Argus swarm, suggested a desire to be left alone. The greatest danger, they proposed, was continued provocation. Humanity was like a child poking a sleeping leviathan with a stick. The only sane course of action was to put the stick down and walk away as quietly as possible. From this meeting, the Aerodanus Accord was born, known colloquially among those who knew of it as the Accord of Silence. It was the most secret and binding international treaty ever ratified. Its terms were simple and brutal. First, the existence of the structure was to be classified at a new, unprecedented level, Umbra 1. All data, all personnel, and all physical evidence were to be buried under layers of impenetrable security. Second, a permanent quarantine zone, enforced by a joint automated weapons platform, was established around the structure's celestial coordinates. Any object, whether a government probe or a private vessel, that crossed the quarantine line would be destroyed without warning. Third, a Joint Intelligence Task Force, codenamed STIX, was created. Its sole purpose was to enforce the silence. STIX operatives were authorized to use any means necessary to scrub data, discredit or silence whistleblowers, and create cover stories for any astronomical anomalies that might draw public attention to the Aerodanus void. For decades, the Accord has held. Atmospheric research satellites are launched to patrol the quarantine zone. Solar flares are used to explain the destruction of private telescopes that happen to be pointing in the wrong direction. The greatest discovery in human history has been systematically and successfully erased from that history. But the Accord is built on one fragile assumption: that the structure will remain silent as long as we do. The question we must ask ourselves is not whether the secret can be kept, but for how long? What happens when a new generation, unaware of the Accord, decides to explore the void? And what happens if the structure, after decades of quiet, decides it no longer wishes to be ignored? Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some secrets are not buried, they are drowned. Arthur Coleman. They told us to forget what we saw, forget the readings. They said it was a ghost echo, a thermal inversion layer playing tricks on new equipment. But you don't forget something like that. Not ever. It imprinted itself on you. On the tapes, sure, but on your soul too. My name is Arthur Coleman. I was the chief sonar technician aboard the USNS Pathfinder in the winter of 1978. Our official mission was classified bathymetric charting for submarine navigation lanes. Deep water stuff. Colder than a grave and darker than sin down there. We were sweeping a section of the trench that was supposed to be geologically silent. Nothing but silt and pressure for 2 miles down. For days, that's all it was. The rhythmic ping of the sonar, the slow scroll of the seafloor on the green phosphorus screen. It was hypnotic, boring work. Then came the anomaly. It wasn't a sudden spike. It was a gradual, impossible return. A shape began to resolve from the noise. It was massive, far larger than any vessel, any geological formation I'd ever seen. The edges were too clean, the angles too perfect. 90-degree corners, symmetrical spires that rose for hundreds of feet from a central nexus. It was a structure, an artifact, and it was sitting at a depth of over 11,000 feet, where nothing man-made should exist. The captain was called, the science officer. They stood behind me, silent, just watching the screen as the ship passed over it. The thing was miles across. We made another pass, and another. Each time the sonar painted the same impossible picture. It was geometric, deliberate. It looked less like a building and more like a circuit board the size of a city, etched into the floor of the ocean. But the strangest part, the part they really wanted us to forget, was the sound. Not the sonar return, but something else. A low-frequency hum embedded in the data. It wasn't a frequency our equipment should have even been able to register. It was a deep, resonant thrum that you felt in your teeth. When we isolated and amplified the recording, it sounded organic, like a million voices whispering a single unknowable word. We logged it, of course, every reading, every pass. 2 days later in port, men in dark suits came aboard. They weren't Navy. They took the logs, the tapes, the charts. They took everything. We were debriefed, told what we saw was a classified equipment test, and that we were to never speak of it again under penalty of treason. They tried to make us believe it was ours. But I know what I saw. Humanity didn't build that thing. It was waiting down there in the dark, and I have the terrible feeling it's still waiting. Arthur Coleman disappeared 2 weeks after giving that interview in 2003. His recording, smuggled out by a journalist, became the cornerstone of a modern myth. For decades, the coordinates he leaked were just numbers on a screen, a destination for a ghost story. But in 2022, that changed. A privately funded international consortium, operating under the name the Magellan Initiative, launched a state-of-the-art research vessel, the Echo Surveyor. Their mission? To use the most advanced deep-sea imaging technology in existence to either prove or debunk Coleman's fantastic claim once and for all. This was not the simple sonar of the 1970s. The Echo Surveyor deployed HUGIN, an autonomous underwater vehicle, or AUV. HUGIN was equipped with high-resolution synthetic aperture sonar, capable of mapping the seafloor with resolutions down to a few centimeters. It carried magnetometers, gravimeters, and sub-bottom profilers designed to see not just the surface of the seabed, but what lies beneath. The world of deep-sea exploration watched. For 3 days, HUGIN descended into the crushing blackness, making methodical sweeps across the target area, a grid laid directly over Coleman's 40-year-old coordinates. On board the Echo Surveyor, the control room was a stark contrast to the clunky, analog world Arthur Coleman described. It was a sterile, silent theater of glowing monitors, displaying cascading streams of data. Scientists and technicians watched in hushed anticipation as the AUV sent back its findings in near real time. The first sonar mosaics began to stitch themselves together on the main screen. They showed nothing, absolutely nothing. Miles of flat, featureless abyssal plain, the same empty, silt-covered terrain that geological charts had predicted all along. There were no spires, no 90-degree angles, no structure the size of a city. The team ran diagnostics, checking for equipment malfunction. Everything was operating perfectly. They recalibrated, rescanned, and launched a second AUV to cross-reference the data. The result was the same. The trench was empty. The Magellan Initiative's preliminary report was a quiet, clinical disappointment. No anomalous structures or geological formations were detected at the specified coordinates. To the wider world, the case was closed. Arthur Coleman was a tragic figure, a man who either hallucinated, misinterpreted a natural phenomenon, or crafted an elaborate hoax. The structure in the deep was officially relegated to the realm of fiction. But in the world of clandestine research, a null result is often more interesting than a confirmation. Because if Coleman wasn't lying, then the new data presented a far more terrifying question. How do you hide a city at the bottom of the ocean? Or more chillingly, where did it go? The official story was that the trench was empty. The data was clean, but data is never truly clean. Deep within the terabytes of raw sensor logs from the HUGIN AUV, something lay hidden. Not an image, but an echo, a digital ghost. The discovery was made by Dr. Ilara Vance, a data scientist contracted by one of the initiative's more secretive private investors. Vance wasn't looking for a structure. She was conducting a forensic audit of the mission's background noise, the seemingly random static that all sensor equipment generates. She was looking for patterns, for anything that might suggest foreign surveillance or industrial espionage. Instead, she found something far stranger. Buried beneath layers of signal noise from the AUV's own systems and the ambient sound of the abyss was a whisper. A structured, repeating signal that was mathematically inconsistent with any known natural or man-made source. It was incredibly faint, a 1 in a billion anomaly that standard processing software had dismissed as a rounding error. Vance spent 6 months developing a proprietary filter to isolate it. What emerged was not a sound in the traditional sense like the hum Coleman described, but a complex packet of information. It had no discernible language, no pictograms, no simple binary code. It was a stream of impossibly complex geometric and topological data. The signal seemed to be a multidimensional blueprint. It described physics that shouldn't work, geometries that couldn't exist in our 3 dimensions. It detailed the manipulation of space-time on a quantum level, all encoded in a mathematical language that we lack the framework to fully comprehend. It was, for lack of a better term, a schematic, a set of instructions. The signal wasn't being broadcast from a location. It appeared to be impressed upon the location. It was as if the structure, during its time in the trench, had fundamentally altered the quantum signature of that specific coordinate in space-time. The structure was gone, but it had left behind a blueprint of itself, a ghost woven into the fabric of the abyss. The data fragments were corrupted, incomplete, but the sections Vance and her small, secret team managed to decode were terrifying. They described principles of energy generation that would violate thermodynamics, methods of data storage that would make a microchip look like an abacus. This was not just an advanced technology. It was a different kind of science altogether. The structure wasn't just a building, it was an engine, a machine. And the data ghost it left behind was still active, still pulsing its impossible knowledge into the void. The null result from the sonar scan was a lie, a failure of perception. We were looking for a cathedral of stone and steel when we should have been listening for a whisper in the static. So where does this leave us? We are faced with a trinity of contradictions. A ghost story from a terrified old man, a sterile, empty scan from the pinnacle of modern technology, and a phantom signal, a digital ghost, that suggests both are true. The structure existed, and the structure is not there. This paradox forces us beyond the simple question of, what was it? And into the far more unsettling territory of, what is it? The evidence, when taken as a whole, points to possibilities that strain the very limits of our understanding. Was the structure a temporary installation? An outpost or a beacon placed in the abyssal dark by an intelligence so advanced that their presence is as fleeting and incomprehensible as a thought? Perhaps it was never truly physical in the way we understand it. The data fragments, with their descriptions of multidimensional physics, suggest a trans-dimensional object, existing in a state of flux between our reality and another. It may not have vanished but simply shifted, its physical anchor in our world withdrawn. We are left to wonder if its appearance in 1978 was intentional or an accident, a brief, careless flicker of its existence made visible to our primitive tools. Or perhaps the most disturbing theory is the one that considers the structure's own agency. What if it is not merely an object, but an entity? One that can choose when and how it is perceived. It allowed a 1970s sonar to see it, but rendered itself perfectly invisible to the far more advanced sensors of today, leaving behind only a deliberate, tantalizing breadcrumb of data for us to find. A test, perhaps. A riddle posed from the crushing dark. Why was it there? The schematic-like data suggests a purpose. It was a machine, built for something. Was it observing us? Was it a power source tapping into geothermal energy or something far more exotic? Or was it a gateway, a stable entry and exit point to somewhere else? The final, unanswered question is the one that echoes in the silence of that empty trench. We searched for a lost city, an alien relic. But what if the structure wasn't lost at all? What if it is exactly where it wants to be, hidden not by distance or depth, but by a veil of physics we can't yet comprehend? Down in the cold, permanent midnight of the abyss, an impossible secret is being kept. We have listened to its echo, but we have no idea what it's trying to say.